assumption that it does happen more and more going forward.
We're using advanced AI systems to uncover new solutions to problems that we don't fully understand or that we think may never be achievable. We've worked to and use AI to help control the plasma of nuclear fusion reactors, which is an important step in the safety of making this a viable solution. So I think there's a lot of things that we're seeing, and generative AI in my mind is really just the first rung on a very long ladder. I think it's exciting to think about the potential. And again, the reason I joined DeepMind was thinking about what future I want to hand my children and the generations that follow. And I believe AI can help us create a better society.
If you want society to embrace technology and to trust technology, you need to have that social contract with society. And if it's necessary to put more guardrails, to put certain mechanisms and principles in place, and this is what we want to do in the AI Act, you need some sort of clear principles and mechanisms, not just to regulate the next big thing that is coming, but that will be foundational for the technology under which whatever you want to create that has to do something with AI, you need to abide by those basic principles and mechanisms.
Last year, we did a study on aviation, and we also looked at how we can how we can keep the aviation sector below 2 degrees. And Willie mentioned a lot of the same findings that we had. It's going to be a lot about sustainable aviation fuel. It's going to be about improved efficiencies, and it's going to be about zero emission planes, which I think we're going to hear a little bit more about shortly. And the exciting part for us is that we have identified a pathway that is feasible. Now we are going to need government regulations, and I think it's kind of interesting. You look at what's taking place in Europe and you look at what's taking place in the US, and they're kind of going on 2 different pathways. Let's start with the US. We've heard a lot about the Inflation Reduction Act. The Inflation Reduction Act is really about incentives and subsidies to bring the sustainable aviation fuel using government money, and that's going to probably get us displacing about 10% of our aviation fuel by about 2030, something along those lines.
But from Rolls-Royce's perspective, we've got a number of really exciting technology projects. We broke the world speed record last year with an all-electric plane, single-seater, but it's the world's most powerful battery ever taken to the sky. So really proving the potential of some of that technology. We are working on some hydrogen projects as well, which I won't go into in too much detail, but again, we've tested a gaseous hydrogen engine actually. Again, operated as expected, no real changes needed, which is pretty key in an industry that's so heavily regulated and relies so much on certification. No changes, sometimes a really, really good thing.
Here is where data is very important. Eurocontrol did an excellent study. If you banned all flights in Europe, every single one below 500 kilometers, you would reduce the number of flights by 24%, but the impact on CO2 is only 3.8%. So I think when we're making these decisions, we need to understand, what is the impact of the decision going to be? And we need to be honest with people. If you banned all short-haul flying in Europe, say 3.8%. If you introduce the single European sky in Europe, which is technically possible today, you would reduce emissions by 10%. So there are steps that we can take, and we need every single possible contribution to get to net zero in 2050. But I'm very clear that from an industry point of view, we can do it, and you will be able to continue to fly between now and 2050. And in 2050, this industry will be at net zero.
That's all from Bloomberg New Economy Gateway Europe, the world reglobalizes. You'll find all our panels and interviews at Bloomberg.com and on the terminal. I'm Eric Schatzker. This is Bloomberg.
My guest this week is the award-winning Nigerian writer and author Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Named by Time magazine as one of its most influential people, her writing covers everything from war to feminism to most recently a very personal take on grief, having lost both of her parents in quick succession. I want to ask her about being described as fearless for speaking her mind, and also what it was like to team up with Beyonce to try and promote feminism. Chimamanda, welcome. It's so lovely to have you with me on this programme and see you in person.
I know. Thank you, Emma, for having me. It's lovely to see you.
Well, the last time we spoke was last year,
Yeah.
and you had just penned a short book called Notes on Grief, and we were talking in a difficult time for you, but you wanted to talk about losing your father and then losing your mother, and you said to me you were trying to understand grief and process it, and I wanted to start by asking how you are today.
Well, I think I'm learning that a lot of living is sort of pretending to be fine. So I think I'm doing that very well. I'm fine. Thank you for asking. But I think everything happy that happens to me now is always tainted by a kind of sort of like a residual sadness. And it's because I just adored my parents, and it still feels very, very disorienting for me.
I bet.
Yeah.
I mean, you talked about those stages as well, coming undone,
Yeah.
feeling unmoored, but you're right about the world expects you to get back to some place, and you have your responsibilities as well.
And you do, you just sort of, but you carry something with you always. And it's interesting because I thought that I would be more aware of this kind of emptiness in my life when I'm sad, but actually it's when I'm happy. It's when I'm having a lovely day and suddenly I think, my God, I can't FaceTime Daddy. And I had a thing in the US last month where I got a lovely medal, and I love those things because I just love shiny things. And all I could, I really did want to take my phone and FaceTime my parents, because that's what I've done my whole life when I've been given something meaningful. It's to call my parents.
Well, they're the people who cheer you up.
Yeah. So I really was going to FaceTime them and thought, wait, I can't.
No.
And so it's those moments that are really just painful.
Something else you said which has stayed with me is the idea that we live in this world and we know death's a part of it, and we're still so surprised. Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah. And even when we say, as I do now, life is short, you really need to think about what matters and how you want to live. It's also at the same time a strange thing to live life always thinking about death. Because in a way, death is sort of it's the on life, it's the not life. And so it's a strange thing, I think. I mean, I do want to, and I think a lot changed for me when my parents died in the way that I think about life and how I want to live. But I think death is still surprising. It still is.
One of the ways, I don't know how much this speaks to you, but people talk about faith and that helping them through these sorts of times. Do you have that in your life? Have you come back to that?
It's very complicated. After my father died, I was raised